Where to begin, guys? Where to begin?
Oh, God.
So, this movie, there's so many things I want to say. So, fair warning, this is going to be rife with spoilers. So if you plan on seeing this movie and you don't want to see spoilers, go ahead and click out of this video now because I am absolutely going to spoil it for you. I'm so sorry, but I can't talk about this movie, honestly, without spoiling it. So let's get into it.
Fushigi ball came to mind when I watched it, and it turns out these are magical satanic balls.
So this is a movie called Longlegs, and I just watched it in theaters, but of course I had to dress for the occasion since it is a movie that touted to be something similar to The Silence of the Lambs. Of course I had to wear one of my Silence of the Lambs shirts. But anyway, so this movie said it was going to be the scariest thing, you know, this decade, and it was going to be something very similar to Silence of the Lambs. So while it does have some similarities, completely way off on that in my opinion, and you're going to find out why. First and foremost, the acting performances were definitely pretty strong. However, the majority of the strength came from Micah Monroe, who plays the lead character of Lee Harker. So she does a really good job in this movie of portraying this FBI agent who kind of is quirky but also has somewhat of a psychic ability. You definitely find her relatable, and she's got enough, you know, quirk to her that, you know, you end up liking her character. Another person who pops up, who is also another person from a horror movie you might recognize, and she is a scream queen from the movie Urban Legend. And if you've watched that movie like I have, even though it might not be the best horror movie, it is definitely one of the throwbacks that I watch every so often. I mean, it was back in the day when, you know, Joshua Jackson was at the height of his career with Dawson's Creek, so it definitely was one that I watched as a, you know, younger person and still watch now. But anyway, she's in this movie and she plays kind of a major character, which was interesting. I kind of liked that she was someone from a different scary movie. But the reason I mention all of this is because Nicolas Cage's character. Okay, so I'm kind of at a loss for words because I don't even know where to begin with this, guys. Okay, so again, if you don't want spoilers, click out of this now. This character that he plays of Longlegs, this character has this really gnarly looking prosthetic work on his face, which is just kind of off-putting. Not in the, you know, right way that you would want it to be for a scary movie. It just kind of, I don't know, it feels completely out of place for his character to have this very plastic surgery enhanced looking face, kind of weird juxtaposed to the setting, because the whole movie is kind of set like in a different era, you know, it's kind of back in the day. So for that to be in the middle of this movie just felt really weird. But also, I really don't care for when an actor puts too much of themselves into a character and it's really just kind of them as another character, if that makes sense. In this one, you definitely feel like it's Nicolas Cage with a giant amount of prosthetics on his face being crazy Nicolas Cage. And that just feels really weird because there's a lot of odd singing and yelling that, you know, I know they're trying to give you weird and crazy, you know, creepy murdery guy, but it doesn't sell it. What it sells is Nicolas Cage being weird in a prosthetic. Every time he went into these weird little tangents of singing or yelling or whatever he was doing, it just really took me out of it. It was uncomfortable. It honestly made me kind of look away from the screen and look at my husband and go, what the F? Because I don't really feel like it added to the character. I think any time that a movie role, a character role for these actors has, you know, if you're going to have a lot of prosthetics on, then I feel like that lends the actor the ability to do a whole lot more, to move away from who they are and to become something else entirely. And there have been cases of this in other movies where, you know, when you find out who that actor is underneath all those prostheses, you're like, wow, I can't believe that was them. I had no idea. you don't get that at all with this movie. You know the entire time, start to finish, oh, that is definitely Nicolas Cage. So I didn't really care for that, you know, and I was really rooting for this movie because it just sounded really good. The way they were selling it really made it sound like it was going to be amazing, and it just really did not live up to that. I really wish, honestly, that they had not mentioned any of that they had not oversold it, because then maybe it would have had a better chance. You know, because at the end of the day, it had a good, you know, retro type of vibe to it. The filming style was good. Some of the story plotline was kind of interesting, but at the end of the day, I would say about halfway through, it really starts to lose you. And even in the audience at this movie theater, you could kind of audibly tell that the audience was starting to lose interest. And what I mean by that is you could hear people like starting to laugh in the middle of it, like, okay, this is ridiculous. And that is never a good sign with a scary movie. You never want your audience to just kind of laugh off when it's a serious movie, when there's really not any funny going on. But yeah, so anyway, it just kind of does this whole slow burn. And the beginning of it, I would say the first third of the movie, is actually really interesting and really good. It has this very much Silence of the Lambs feel. And the very first scene is very creepy, and it gets you sucked in, and you're invested, and you're interested to see where it's going. But it's a real shame that the beginning third of this movie doesn't really land because of the rest of it. And had they really taken the whole feel and vibe of the first part of the movie and ran with that, then it would have been great. But the reason I mentioned in the beginning of this video that the Fushigi ball came to mind when I watched it is because at the end of the day, the ultimate culprit, the ultimate evildoer in this movie is an evil devil ball made of metal, and it looks like a Fushigi ball. And I just could not get past that. But so ultimately my rating for this movie was a 5 out of 10. The reason I give it a 5 is because the main actress, she does a pretty great job throughout the whole thing. Her supporting actor, Blair Underwood, does a great job as well. It just, it's such a bummer that there was so much potential to this movie and that it just feels like it got wasted. And if they had just had Nicolas Cage tone all of the yelling and the craziness down like 90% and throw all of that away, and instead of doing any weird singing or yelling, just keep this weird ranty vibe that he had going on, then that would have made sense. Another thing that bothered me about his character is that he's got this gnarly prosthetic face and this scraggly old hair, and it doesn't really look like he takes care of himself very well, right? But then he's got these like $1 million looking teeth. It doesn't really make sense, especially not when there's a period of time that they show that goes by between the beginning moments in the movie and then a later, you know, when they actually catch the guy, you know, in the end. And literally his teeth look like a Colgate commercial. And little details like that, they stand out when you're watching on a gigantic screen. You can't miss those things. So I don't know how in editing they didn't think to like maybe do something with the teeth, you know, at all. But it just kind of helps throw it off. And again, majorly looks like Nicolas Cage wearing a prosthetic. And the weird thing is, at first, I thought it was going to be a really creepy like doll mask or something, because that's kind of what it looked like from all the, you know, quick shots that you get in the trailer and all those other things. I thought it was going to be some kind of weird mask that he's wearing over his face. But no, at the end you see that it is his face, which makes it just odd because it just doesn't look realistic. It's more in that uncanny valley area, which if you're unfamiliar with uncanny valley, basically it's the concept of your mind can tell when something is human-like but not 100% human. For example, with wax figures, how they look human and everything is anatomically correct. However, we know with our, ability to look at things and reason, we can tell that there's just something off about it. Well, that's when something falls into the uncanny valley. So for me, this prosthetic thing that he's got going on with the perfect teeth, yet everything else disheveled, really falls into that uncanny valley. It's like, I don't know, he looks like he's kind of made out of porridge on the face, and it's just, I don't know, I was really disappointed by that, especially because that's kind of what this whole movie hangs on, is that this guy is this just menacing, figure. And for him to, end up being kind of a made of prosthetic porridge looking face, just, I don't know. And it almost looks pig-like in a way because of like how they made this area of the face look. And when you see the movie, if you are going to watch it, which, by all means, I always say this in all of my reviews, if you want to see a movie, do not let anyone stop you. Just because I have a bad opinion or anyone on the internet has a bad opinion of a movie does not mean that you shouldn't see it. If you're a huge Nicolas Cage fan, you may absolutely love this movie, and that's okay. You may have a complete opposite opinion, and that's okay too. But, being a horror fan, what I loved about the Silence of the Lamb movies is that, and what I thought made it such a genius movie, is that it very much played into the fact that what is so scary and so menacing about serial killers in real life is that they aren't scary looking. They look just like everyone else. They act just like everyone else. If anything, they can even be more charming, more manipulating. And that is what makes them so incredibly scary, is because they blend in like chameleons with everyone else. You may never even know you've come across a person who is one. So that in and of itself is what makes that so terrifying. And so for me, this completely opposes that, because this person is just as weird and odd and off-putting as you can get, yet it seems like they just kind of went unnoticed for like a decade. Anyway, so there's also a couple of tests that I do with all of my movie reviews, and I'll still do those here. So, did it pass the trailer test? Obviously, if I did not like the movie, I'm gonna say no. And that's absolutely correct in this one. So to me, the trailer really, honestly, the trailer is amazing. The trailer makes the movie look great. It looks dark. It definitely gives the Silence of the Lamb vibe. It has a strong lead female actress. It had Nick Cage looking completely unlike himself and not even sounding like himself. So the trailer makes you feel like this is going to be an epic movie. What you get in the end, in my opinion, is absolutely not that. So for me, that's why it does not pass the trailer test at all. I would say, based on the trailer, I thought it was going to be maybe, at least an 8 out of 10. And for it to end up being a 5, that makes me feel like they definitely took the best parts and put them in the trailer so that it would draw people to the theater. One of the other tests I do is the husband sleep test, and my husband will definitely not stay awake if he's not that interested. So in this one, he stayed awake. It did pass the husband sleep test. However, he did tell me that really the main reason that he stayed awake was because he was waiting for something to happen. He was waiting for that real crazy stuff to start happening, and it really never took off. So that was a bummer. So I think that in retrospect, if had he known it wasn't going to really ever take off, then he probably would have fallen asleep. So I don't know that that's necessarily considered a pass. You be the judge. One of my other tests is the scary versus story. So in this one, so the story is definitely the problem. So it's not necessarily that it didn't have enough scary, which I will argue that it should have had more scary, but there are a lot of good scary moments in it. There's a lot of creepy factor, but it just gets completely wasted when the storyline never takes off, or when it does take off, it kind of flatlines and it takes a nosedive. And so I'll kind of give you a play-by-play. So basically, this actress, the main actress, she is an FBI agent. She's kind of a little bit of a weirdo in the sense that she's more of an introvert. She doesn't really have a lot of social skills from what it looks like, but she does have some sort of psychic abilities, something along that line. And so they put her on this case where she's trying to track down this killer, but there's some sort of weird connection between her and the killer. So at this point, and what I thought when I watched the trailer was, ooh, maybe this is going to turn out to be her dad or some sort of relative of hers. And that's what's going to be the tie. And then at the end, you know, she's going to figure out exactly why she had this psychic connection, and it was because she was somehow related to him. It doesn't go that route. What happens is she, you know, starts doing this investigation, and there's all these random weird things that happen and that just make no sense. For example, she gets visited by, you know, what obviously is the bad guy, because they leave her a package and she figures, you know, she sees a message from the person, and she does nothing to really safeguard herself. You would think, being an FBI agent, that you're going to make sure, you know, and check through your whole house to make sure everything's good. You're going to shut your blinds if someone's obviously watching you. But it's kind of like she sees what's happening, knows they came into her house, and then nothing comes of it. She just kind of accepts that they came in and visited and handed her something, and then just kind of moves on. It's the weirdest thing. She continues to investigate things. She decodes this guy, these messages that he's doing that are kind of like the Zodiac. So in a way, this movie is kind of like bits of ideas from the Zodiac, which is a real murderer, and bits of ideas from The Silence of the Lambs, which is the fictional movie. So it kind of mashed the two together, but not in a good way, because you don't really find out why the person uses code and what that has to do with anything. You don't find out why they're committing these murders, like what the real draw or what the real like root for the main bad guy is in doing this. There's just so many loose ends, I can't even begin to tell you. But anyway, so she's going through and she's doing this investigation, and like I said, they come into her house. She realizes there's a tie to herself. It's able to allow her to decode all these other messages. She takes this information to her boss, who then, you know, they continue to decode clues and get closer and closer to finding the person. And then she realizes that the guy visited her in her childhood, and she's not sure how that's connected or what happened. Her memory seems to be completely gone of the event. So she tries to ask her mom, who acts really sketchy about it and, you know, is really just an off-the-wall character. And she figures out that she has a photo of this guy and is able to, you know, get him caught based on this photo. And then he's caught, and there's really no follow-up. There's not a whole lot of information besides him saying it's all in the name of the devil, and then he kills himself. And then he tells her to ask her mom, and she's like, well, what does my mom have to do with this? She goes to find her mom. Her mom acts sketchy, and it then has to do with these dolls that this guy has been making, and apparently he's been living in their basement, which apparently she didn't know, even though she's lived there her whole life. And it turns out these are magical satanic balls. I'm not kidding you. Magical satanic little silver ball-bearing balls that are about this big. And they're being implanted into the heads of these dolls that are being then given to these families, and is causing these families to unalive each other and themselves, which is crazy. But it doesn't stop there. It goes one further. The mom then reveals, once the daughter realizes that she's kind of involved, the mother then kills the daughter's FBI friend who came with her to the house to question her mother. And she reveals that what she's been doing is, in exchange for this devil-worshipping weirdo to not her kid, she agreed to help him carry out these rituals, which is basically her dressing up as a nun, a pretend nun, going to these people's houses and delivering them these handmade dolls that he meticulously makes in her basement, which look like their kid, each individual family's child, and each one, for whatever reason, is all with the same birth date as the FBI agent lady. If I haven't lost you, or if I've lost you, I'm so sorry, but I'm trying to make this as simplistic as I can. But because it's that ridiculous, and I'm so sorry. But anyway, so her mom is delivering these customized giant doll things with this demonic fushigi ball inside the doll's head, which apparently carries the demonic spirit thing that is possessing these families and causing them to do what they're doing. And that's how they're murdering these families. But the mother reveals that she's been staying in the house to ensure that the doll does its work before she leaves. And this is all in the name of keeping her own daughter, which is the FBI agent, alive. Yeah. First and foremost, someone shows up to my house, period. I think I've told you guys before in another one of my videos. If someone I don't know, that I don't expect, comes to my door, I am not answering the door. This is true of anything. I don't answer the door for Amazon. I don't answer the door for anyone. I don't care who or what you are. If I did not invite you to my house, if I see you at my door, which I have cameras everywhere, but if I see you and I don't know who you are not getting an answer at my door. I don't know you. And if I don't expect you, why? Why would I answer the door? Just, you can leave me a note if it's important. Or if it's a service that I need, or you're related to some service that I have, I will likely get a phone call or an email or something in the mail, right? So, yeah, no thank you. But anyway, especially then if you dress that person up as a nun, even less. I'm sorry, it's not, anything in particular against nuns. It's just that the uneasiness of someone who's heavily religious coming to your door, I don't know, it just creeps me out. So yeah, I'm not going to open the door. But anyway, add on top of that, the person having a giant mysterious box with them. Heck no, I'm not opening that door. And then, so the way that she explains that she's getting these families to trust her and open the door is she's saying, "Hi, congratulations, you've won a gift from your church." Well, you've already lost me there, because I already know a church wants donations. They're not going around handing expensive giant items to strangers. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. And if a church is gonna make a meticulously lifelike likeness of my child in a doll, I'm sorry, but alarms and red flags running all around, like, absolutely not. That would be the creepiest thing a stranger at the door could possibly bring. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, and I'm just, and it's probably because of how many scary movies I've seen and how much true crime and horror stuff that I watch. I am so skeptical of everyone and everything. But period, point blank, a stranger with a "Hi, I have a free gift for you," that screams scam and run. Like something is wrong. Danger, Will Robinson, But anyhow, so she says this is how she gets them to allow her to get into the house and do all these things, and and then she has to wait to make sure that everything is done before she vacates and then goes off to the next house. But the other thing is too, how are you as a child, not aware that your mom's moonlighting as a nun and like dropping off giant dolls? And also, how is this random dude living in your basement and creating dolls for years, and like you not realizing or ever seeing the products to create the dolls getting delivered? And how is this operation being funded? I'm sorry, and I know I'm being critical of that, but it just, I'm okay with at least a little thread of something making something make sense. But when something is just kind of off the wall and feels all over the place and I don't understand it, that's where I start to pick things apart. And this movie it's so full of them that I feel like this script had to have been, and this whole storyline had to have, gone through so many checks and balances And I don't understand, like, how this was the final draft. Like, why didn't anyone say, okay, guys, no, this isn't gonna work. This doesn't make sense. Let's recircle, let's redraft, let's, think more about this ending, because also the ending.
Oh, God.
So her mom explains all of this, more or less. And, her mom, like I mentioned before, her partner person who came with her to the house to question the mom, and she finds her mom in a nun outfit, and the mom is standing in front of and aiming her rifle at this doll that looks like the FBI agent, her daughter, as a child. And she says something along the lines of, you're free now, and it's the doll. And that fushigi ball that's inside the doll head just breaks apart in this black little weird, I guess demon cloud of smoke comes out of it. And the daughter kind of faints, and it looks like something comes out of her head that looks of similar consistency. But there's zero explanation as to exactly what is going on with that. What is the connection? How does any of it make sense? And she gets faint and just kind of falls out and ends up waking up in the basement where this guy has been making these dolls beneath her house, and answers the phone in her mother's house. And this weird eerie voice tells her that she's supposed to go to her boss's little girl's party, which in the very beginning there's this scene, and it's actually pretty funny, and it's a nice little breakup and a little bit of dark humor, because she's this awkward person, and her boss invites her into his house to meet his child and his wife, and his kid is actually really nice to her, even though she's really awkward socially. And so she kind of has a bonding moment with his daughter, and his daughter invites her to her birthday party. So basically this phone call, this anonymous weird phone call, tells her that she's missing the birthday party. So she knows, oh crap, something's going on at this house. Let me go and get to my boss's house. She gets there, and her mom is sitting in the living room, and her boss's daughter has a doll that looks just like herself. And her boss and his wife are sitting on the couch being very bizarre and weird. And her mom tells her that basically it's already set in motion, and that her boss is about to kill his wife, or, basically she's already dead, so don't even bother. And that his little girl is next, which is awful. And he proceeds to unalive his wife, and she doesn't really stop him from doing that, which is concerning, being, an FBI agent. She doesn't, shoot the doll with the evil fushigi ball in it, because, I don't know, she just doesn't. And she just allows her mom to say, like, oh, we're both gonna, go to the fiery pits of, the where, if we don't keep doing this, or we don't let it happen. And so she ends up, allowing her boss to walk off with the wife, and he very eerily, tells his wife, we're going to the kitchen, but you're not coming back, which is so disturbing. And you overhear what sounds like, some unaliving going on in the kitchen. He comes back, obviously with the intent to unalive other members of his family, and she has to unalive him to stop him. But at no point does she think, okay, let me aim it at the center of the evil, the fushigi doll with the, thing in its head. No, she just lets the doll sit there, and then unalives her mom, and then, tries to grab the kid away from the doll, because the kid is, like, eerily, like, hugging the doll this whole time, even though all hell is breaking loose around her. And then goes to aim the gun at the doll finally, and has no bullets, and roll credits. That's the end. Like, there's there's just so much that is so wrong with the movie. Like, and it's like I said, there's so many things. So, okay, things I would change about this movie in order to take it from what it was to a 10 out of 10 movie. I would absolutely change the fact that Nicolas Cage has prosthetics on his face. Just leave his face alone. Maybe gnarly up his teeth to make it look like he's a believable, like, vagabond type dude. And give him a weird doll mask. A weird, creepy doll mask would have been so much better than that weird prosthetic thing he had on his face. It just, I don't know. For me, it did not make sense at all. It just doesn't at all. And instead of making the weird, evil fushigi balls that have demons inside of them or whatever is going on there, 86 that whole concept. Because it just completely makes no sense. I don't know. I can't. Like, I can't with that. Evil silver metal balls. Like, we already had Phantasm movies. We know there's evil balls that can be done in movies, you know, no pun intended, and I'm sorry for saying it that way, but I'm just saying an evil metal ball has been done in a movie. So we should have just left it there. And then the connection between the main character of Lee Harker and the evil guy of Longlegs should have honestly been that it had been her weird estranged father, because she didn't have a father in the movie anyway, and there's really no explanation as to why she doesn't. They don't really touch on that at all. So why couldn't it have been her dad and it had been some weird connection, you know, between them, like kind of like brain tentacles, you know, some sort of relative connection. That to me would have been more interesting. And also, you know, make it to where it's just a real life killer. There's nothing wrong with not going paranormal where paranormal is not needed. And in this case, you know, and I've mentioned this before in some of my other reviews, you know, horror movies and the paranormal aren't what scare me. My neighbors, you know, based on, you know, and everyone in the free world scares me more than what I see in horror movies. Why? Because at the end of the day, horror movies are 9 times out of 10 inspired by the people who do worse things in real life for absolutely no reason sometimes. And that is way scarier. And again, these are people who don't look scary, which is even more lethal because you don't see it coming. So they really just should have gone with that and made it more realistic than going this evil fushigi ball demon thing that they did, because it didn't land. It really doesn't land at all. And the ending absolutely tanks it, you know, because at the end of it you're just kind of hoping that there's something good that's going to develop, or that it's going to get better, or at some point there's going to be an upswing, and it just doesn't ever happen. But to bring it back to a little bit of a positive note, again, I will make mention that the acting, other than some of Nicolas Cage's parts, were actually pretty spot on. They were pretty good. And the other thing I appreciate about it is kind of a time period movie. So again, I mentioned in some of my other reviews of movies how I do appreciate when they do time period things like that, and they make them accurate, and they do all these details in order to make it realistic to those time periods. So for those things, I liked the movie. I also liked that actually the overall film style that they did the movie in. Those things are the reason why I gave it a 5 rather than lower than that. But because of the super bizarre prosthetic for Nicolas Cage, because of the really oddly placed yelling and singing that Nicolas Cage does in his character, those parts, and again his gorgeous teeth that make no sense for his character, those things just, you know, really took me out of his part of it. The evil metal balls with demon, you know, whatever in them being the ultimate culprit, it just, yeah, that really just made it bomb for me, guys. So I don't want to continue raining on this movie, but, you know, like I said, I welcome anyone who wants to see the movie to see it, because at the end of the day, it's important to form your own opinions. You know, if you want to see this movie just for the sake of seeing it, honestly, sometimes watching a bad movie can be fun anyway, just because you'll have something to talk about. You know, maybe you have a significant other that you like discussing movies with, like I do, where we enjoy talking about those things. So honestly, if you want to see the movie just to see how bad it is, or just to see the things that I'm talking about and the evil fushigi ball, then you definitely should take a look at it. You know, I like going to the movies. You know, like I've mentioned to you guys before, I enjoy my at-home theater experiences when I can. So when a movie comes out, home release, I am always happy for that too. But in this case, you know, with these movies, them coming out and me wanting to do these reviews, I go to the movie theater. I'm happy to support the movie theater. I go to Cinemark because I'm part of the Cinemark movie club. But again, if you want to see these movies, definitely check them out. I would be more than happy to see what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know what you rated it. If you have any thoughts, opinions on any of the details that I've provided in this video, let me know. What do you think about it? Can you imagine a evil silver ball really being the type of ending that you could consider a good ending? I don't know, you know, but I want to know from you guys what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Please hit that subscribe button to let me know that you want to see more of my content. But thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.